lots of people to thank for this video.
Spoiler alert!
None of them bought a ticket.
What the f***?
She comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
And she's mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And then they show her a picture of Rachel Zegler, and somehow she has to not burst out laughing.
We absolutely wrote a Snow White.
CEO of IBM.
It is a colossal disaster.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
If you thought getting roasted by The Simpsons was the worst part, oh honey, buckle up. Because insiders say Rachel Zegler didn't just get mad, she allegedly went full nuclear behind the scenes.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Here we go again.
Yep, according to multiple whispers flying around Hollywood, Rachel's team secretly floated the idea of taking legal action over her brutal Snow White parody in Snowwoke, the Reimagining. And you better believe the industry is still laughing or gasping, depending on who you ask. I mean, trying to fight The Simpsons? That's like bringing a glitter pen to a sword fight.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It doesn't end well. Apparently, the second Rachel caught wind of the parody, where a cartoon princess delivers a TED Talk about dismantling patriarchal narratives while woodland creatures visibly fall asleep, she lost it. Sources claim calls were made immediately, not just to Disney or Fox, but allegedly to high-powered legal advisors. The vibe? Can we sue? Can we shut it down? Can we at least threaten them enough to make them sweat a little? And the answer she reportedly got? A resounding, brutal, hilarious no.
They flopped so hard in Snow White, and we all saw how that went.
Fox insiders were allegedly unfazed. It's satire, one source said bluntly. Good luck suing free speech. Translation? This wasn't their first rodeo. And Rachel was about to learn that in Hollywood, if The Simpsons decides you're a punchline, you don't get a seat at the editing table. You get a lifetime season pass to the meme circus. Meanwhile, the internet was already ablaze. TikToks, reaction videos, side-by-sides of real Rachel interviews with her cartoon twin. Everywhere you looked, there she was. Not as a glamorous leading lady, not as a Disney darling, but as a walking, talking, meme-generating cautionary tale.
Our rights are on the line, folks. Our reproductive rights. Come on, I don't need your business. Thanks.
And as the hours ticked by, one thing became painfully clear. If Rachel Zegler thought she could erase this moment with a lawyer's letter, she was about to find out how fast Hollywood eats its own. And that, my friends, was just the beginning. Now here's where it gets even juicier. According to one insider who claims to have overheard a very heated Zoom call, Rachel's team was absolutely convinced they could pressure Fox into quietly removing or at least re-editing the episode. One source described the conversation like this. There was this weird, desperate optimism, like maybe if they used enough legal-sounding words, the network would just cave to avoid drama. Bless their hearts. As if The Simpsons hasn't been dragging presidents, CEOs, and pop stars for 35 years straight without blinking. Rachel's reps allegedly floated everything. Claims of defamation, damage to her professional reputation, even a vague argument about emotional distress.
I'm a narcissist.
Emotional distress? Babe, it's The Simpsons, not an exposé. But still, the calls went out. Emails were allegedly drafted. And according to two separate sources, there was even a very early, very unofficial consultation with outside legal counsel about whether parody could be challenged in this case. Spoiler alert, it couldn't. Meanwhile, back at Fox, the vibe was less oh no and more LOL good luck. Insiders say network execs barely paused to entertain the noise. One source described the internal reaction as shrug, sip coffee, air the rerun. Because here's the thing about satire in the US, it's basically bulletproof. And if Fox wasn't scared of politicians and billionaires throwing tantrums over parodies, they sure as heck weren't about to tremble because a Disney princess caught feelings. Meanwhile, as Rachel's team scrambled behind the scenes, the internet was moving at lightning speed. Memes, edits, viral tweets, TikToks with millions of views stitching her real interviews next to her animated meltdown. It was brutal, it was hilarious, and it was snowballing faster than any PR team could shovel. And somewhere in the middle of it all, while lawyers allegedly drafted strongly worded emails that were never sent, the reality started to set in. No one was going to apologize. No one was going to blink. And worst of all, for Rachel, no one was going to forget. Because when The Simpsons turns you into a joke, you don't negotiate your way out of it. You just pray the next news cycle moves faster than your fallout. But oh, if Rachel thought the internet was going to politely move on, she clearly hasn't met 2025 social media.
We're not all blind, we can still see. Gal Gadot is a beautiful person. And Rachel Zegler is a fairly good-looking person.
Once the idea of her secret legal threats leaked, and let's be real, everything leaks these days, it only poured gasoline on the already raging meme bonfire. Suddenly, every TikTok and YouTube short wasn't just roasting her interviews, they were mocking the idea that she could sue The Simpsons. I mean, come on, suing The Simpsons? That's like suing a tornado for messing up your hair. Cute, but doomed. One viral TikTok showed Rachel's animated parody shouting about dismantling toxic narratives, while a fake courtroom sketch artist frantically tried to keep up. Another showed a fake press conference where Rachel Z tries to serve Krusty the Clown with papers, only to slip on a banana peel labeled public opinion. The internet wasn't just laughing at the parody anymore, it was laughing at the very idea that she thought she could erase it. And if there's one thing worse than being roasted by The Simpsons, it's becoming a punchline about trying to stop The Simpsons. Meanwhile, legal experts started chiming in too, because when the internet smells blood, even the lawyers want a piece. Entertainment attorneys explained, very gleefully, that parody is one of the most protected forms of free speech in the US. And if you're a public figure, especially one who went on a months-long press tour practically begging for attention, you have exactly zero grounds to complain when someone uses your own words to mock you. In other words, Rachel didn't have a legal case. She had a bruised ego. And unfortunately, America's court system doesn't hand out settlements for hurt feelings. As for Fox, according to insiders, they loved the chaos. Ratings for the episode spiked, clips dominated YouTube, and internally, the mood was reportedly described as smug satisfaction.
What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea what she's doing.
Not only had they pulled off one of the most talked about parodies in years, they had done it without blinking, without apologizing, and without opening the floodgates for 1,000 other celebrities to start whining the next time they got lampooned. And poor Rachel, she wasn't just losing the PR battle, she was losing the narrative war. The more she stayed silent, the louder the jokes got. And now, thanks to the rumors of legal threats, she wasn't just the girl who couldn't take a joke, she was the girl trying and failing to cancel one. And in Hollywood, that's a reputation you do not want to have. While Rachel's team was frantically trying to find an escape hatch, Disney was allegedly having a full-blown corporate panic attack behind the scenes. And not the cute kind where someone forgets the frosting at a princess-themed birthday party. No, this was the messy, someone call legal, someone call marketing, someone call Bob Iger himself type of chaos, because suddenly they weren't just dealing with a PR headache, they were staring down the barrel of a full-blown brand embarrassment that had escaped their control faster than a rogue Mickey Mouse balloon at the Thanksgiving Day parade. According to two insiders close to the situation, Disney's crisis team jumped into action almost immediately after the parody aired. Emergency Zoom calls were reportedly scheduled. Communications departments were instructed to monitor sentiment shifts across all platforms. And one marketing director allegedly summarized the meeting with a single panicked phrase: "The meme machine is eating us alive." At first, there were talks about issuing some kind of vague, floaty, "we celebrate all interpretations of storytelling" statement. You know, the usual corporate buzzword smoothie, but that idea was shot down almost instantly. Why? Because the second Disney so much as acknowledged the parody, it would blow the story up 10 times bigger. The golden rule of PR disasters? Never. Add oxygen to a wildfire. So they went for option B, pretend it wasn't happening. Disney PR teams were reportedly instructed to focus messaging elsewhere, meaning push out more cutesy Snow White promotional clips, shine an extra bright spotlight on Gal Gadot's Evil Queen performance, and hope the public would eventually get distracted by, I don't know, a new Taylor Swift album or an alien invasion.
We absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
Meanwhile, internally, the gloves were coming off. According to one insider, top executives were furious, not just at Rachel Zegler's press tour missteps, but at themselves for not reining her in sooner. Allegedly, there was major finger-pointing over why nobody had intervened earlier when her first few interviews set off red flags. "We saw the iceberg," one exec reportedly grumbled. "We just didn't steer fast enough." And worse? There were rumors bubbling that Disney's legal division had quietly advised higher-ups that even if Rachel had threatened legal action against Fox, there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. satire was airtight, and any attempt to escalate legally could actually backfire, painting Disney as the humorless corporate overlord trying to muzzle America's most beloved cartoon show. So yeah, no lawsuits, no statements, no cavalry coming to save the day, just a princess, a parody, and a studio praying the audience would eventually stop laughing. Spoiler alert, they didn't. As Disney tried to quietly mop up the mess, Hollywood insiders were already popping their popcorn and pulling up front row seats. Because let's be honest, nothing travels faster through Tinseltown than the scent of vulnerability. And after the Simpsons parody, Rachel Zegler wasn't just vulnerable, she was practically bleeding in shark-infested waters. According to multiple sources, agents, casting directors, and producers started treating Rachel's name like it had a radioactive warning label slapped on it. Meetings that once buzzed with excitement over her talent suddenly took a very different tone. "She's talented, sure," one executive allegedly said during a development meeting, "but is she worth the PR nightmare?" And that right there was the death sentence. Because in Hollywood, it's never just about talent. It's about package deals. It's about Instagram followers, Q scores, public perception, and above all, brand safety. And Rachel's brand was looking about as safe as a theme park ride held together with duct tape and good intentions. Whispers started floating that several projects Rachel had been circling, or had been quietly offered, were suddenly re-evaluating. One particularly juicy rumor claimed she was being considered for a major YA fantasy adaptation. But after the Simpsons debacle, the studio got cold feet. Another insider said bluntly, "We'll see if she survives the year first." Yikes. It wasn't just studios either. PR firms reportedly started using Rachel's downfall as a case study.
Put another gay diverse woman in it, make it more lit.
One media strategist allegedly built an entire seminar around her saga titled "When Advocacy Alienates, Lessons from a Princess." Not exactly the legacy she probably dreamed of when she signed that Disney contract. Meanwhile, her silence was still deafening. No posts, no red carpet recovery attempts, no teary sit-down interviews to reframe the narrative. Just crickets. And that absence, it was letting the worst assumptions fester. Fans started joking that Rachel had entered witness protection. Commenters on TikTok made memes about her taking a vow of silence until further notice. Even celebrity gossip blogs started asking the same pointed question: where is Rachel Zegler? And as days turned into weeks, one thing became painfully clear. In Hollywood, silence isn't strength. Silence is space, and if you don't fill it yourself, your enemies will. By now, even casual industry watchers could see what was happening. Rachel wasn't just being sidelined, she was being quietly, systematically erased. As the silence dragged on, something even more brutal started happening behind closed doors. People who once championed Rachel Zegler were now, quietly and awkwardly, stepping away, not publicly, not with big statements or flashy headlines, just the Hollywood way. Dropped calls, slow emails, polite, "We're moving in a different direction." Texts that everyone knows really mean, "Please don't bring her name up again." Even within Disney, the shift was unmistakable. Sources whispered that internally, Rachel's name was being treated like a bad omen. Marketing meetings barely mentioned her anymore. Future merchandising plans quietly scrubbed her likeness from major campaigns. Toy lines that once featured a proud new Snow White were now pivoting hard toward Evil Queen merch, dreamy castle sets, and anything, literally anything, that didn't have Rachel's face on it. It wasn't just the studios doing either. Rachel's team reportedly grew divided behind the scenes. Some reps allegedly pushed for a full media offensive. Own it, laugh about it, get ahead of it before someone else defines it for you. But others, the more cautious handlers, advised, staying completely silent and letting the chaos burn itself out. Spoiler alert, the second group won. And spoiler alert number 2, it was a terrible bet.
It's a solid 3 out of 10. It is a colossal disaster.
Because while Rachel was busy saying nothing, her critics were getting louder and more organized. Commentary channels that had once split their videos between Marvel gossip and Disney news now treated Rachel Zegler like an entire content genre. TikTokers who had never even seen West Side Story suddenly had viral edits mocking her downfall. Even comedians started sliding her into punchlines like she was the internet's newest inside joke. Meanwhile, whispers of something even spicier started leaking out. Rumors that Rachel's legal team had behind the scenes floated the idea of exploring options against Fox. Not necessarily filing a lawsuit that would be messy and hopeless against a satire-protected show like The Simpsons, but maybe scaring them into pulling clips, muting discussions, doing something to slow the viral avalanche. Insiders say those legal feelers were laughed out of the room almost immediately. Satire is protected. Parody is protected. And The Simpsons, they live for this kind of thing. Trying to intimidate them into silence was like trying to outscream a jet engine. It only made the situation worse. So here Rachel sat, mocked, memed, muted, and with fewer friends by the day. And the saddest part, none of it had to happen like this. A single moment of humility, a bit of humor, even a tiny wink at the absurdity of it all could have shifted the narrative. Audiences love a celebrity who can laugh at themselves. But instead, Rachel's story was being written for her, and every time she stayed silent, the pen moved further out of her hand. While Rachel's team scrambled behind the scenes, Hollywood itself had already started quietly moving on, and not in the way anyone on Team Zegler would have hoped. Studios, agents, and casting directors weren't waiting for an official scandal, a leaked video, or even a formal apology tour. They were reading the room, and the room was screaming, "Next!" According to insiders, meetings that once excitedly tossed Rachel's name into the mix for new projects were suddenly running ice cold. A highly anticipated YA franchise reboot, Rachel's name, once top 3, was allegedly scratched off after just one executive muttered, "Too much heat." A juicy supporting role in a prestige drama, off the table. Even animated voice work gigs, normally a safe landing spot for stars weathering bad press, started ghosting her team. One agency source put it bluntly, "You can survive bad reviews. You can survive a box office bomb, but once you're seen as the risk, that's career quicksand."
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful.
And the thing was, it wasn't even about what Rachel had said anymore. It was about how it was received. About the perception that she wasn't just a tough sell to audiences, she was a tough sell to marketing teams, to merch divisions, to late-night bookers who didn't want their hosts tiptoeing around a punchline everyone already knew. Behind closed doors, new phrases were quietly entering casting conversations. Terms like brand volatile and narrative fatigue. Translation, Rachel wasn't bringing buzz anymore. She was bringing baggage. And if you're a studio spending $150 million on a movie, the last thing you want is to roll the dice on a star who might spend half the press tour dodging TikTok jokes. Even worse, Disney's silence was being read by insiders as tacit approval. No public defense, no joint interviews. No, we stand by our princess posts on the official Disney accounts. Nothing. And in a town built on alliances and optics, that quiet withdrawal was deafening. It sent a message without needing a press release. Rachel Zegler was no longer the future. One talent manager reportedly told a rising young actress bluntly, "We're using Rachel as a training case. If you're lucky enough to land a legacy role, honor it. Respect the fandom. And remember, being loud online isn't a substitute for being beloved. Harsh? Maybe. True? Absolutely. Because in Hollywood, there's a rule no PR spin can erase. Once they start teaching your name as a cautionary tale, you're not trending. You're toast." And for Rachel, the scary part wasn't just the doors quietly closing, it was how fast it was happening, and how few people seemed interested in prying them back open. If the industry's retreat was a slow, silent fade, the internet's response was a full-blown circus. And Rachel was right at the center of the ring whether she liked it or not. The Simpsons parody had cracked something wide open, and what came pouring out wasn't just memes or jokes. It was a tidal wave of pent-up frustration, sarcasm, and brutal one-liners that no amount of PR training could have prepared her for. TikTok became an instant war zone. Clips of Rachel's old interviews were now being edited into viral before and after montages, her real quotes on one side, the Snowwoke parody clips on the other. And the edits? They weren't even exaggerated. That's what made them devastating. The side-by-sides were too real, too accurate. Audiences didn't even have to squint to see the connection. One viral edit racked up 5 million views in a day, with the brutal caption, "When The Simpsons didn't even need to change your script." Meanwhile, YouTube commentators, never once to pass up a juicy internet feast, pounced. Channels that had once cautiously tiptoed around criticizing Zegler were now gleefully diving in, citing The Simpsons parody as open season. One reaction video titled "Rachel Zegler's Career," a tragic timeline, exploded in popularity. Not because it was mean, but because it was narrated like an obituary, with clips of Snow White's disastrous promo tour playing like a slow, painful montage of red flags everyone now claimed they saw coming.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Thank you, Rachel.
Even Twitter, sorry, X, couldn't resist. Trending hashtags like Simpson and Snowwoke downfall painted a brutal picture. Memes comparing Rachel's silence to cartoon characters hiding under beds flooded the feed. And every time someone thought the internet might be ready to move on, a new viral tweet would drop like a bomb, dragging the conversation back into the spotlight. But here's the thing that stung the most. The mood had shifted. This wasn't gleeful takedown energy anymore. It was something colder, tired. People weren't debating whether Rachel deserved the heat. They were moving past the debate entirely. It wasn't, is she unfairly treated, anymore. It was, we've seen enough. We're done. And that's the worst kind of internet storm to be caught in. Not outrage, not even hate, indifference. Because once the audience stops caring enough to even be mad, rebuilding doesn't just get hard, it gets almost impossible. And Rachel, she was still nowhere to be found, not with a witty comeback, not with a defiant meme, not even with a soft apology disguised as an inspirational quote. She was silent, and the internet was treating that silence like a tombstone. While Rachel stayed silent and the internet built bonfires with her old quotes, Hollywood wasn't just watching. It was taking notes, and not the kind you want your name attached to. According to insiders, the ripple effects from the Simpsons parody weren't just online. They were hitting industry boardrooms, talent agencies, and PR firms like a silent, slow-moving wrecking ball, one that everyone saw coming, but no one dared to step in front of. PR agencies across town reportedly added a new phrase to their internal training documents: avoid a Zegler scenario, not as a joke, as a serious underlined bullet point. One agent described it like this: it's now standard advice for clients. If you're taking a legacy role, respect the legacy. If you have thoughts, fine, but pick your moments and know when to smile and nod. Ouch. Imagine being so iconic in your downfall that you become a cautionary tale for an entire generation of actors. Casting directors, too, were quietly shifting gears. One Netflix exec allegedly scrapped a shortlist that included Zegler for an upcoming YA fantasy series. The memo? She's too polarizing. Another insider revealed that a Marvel TV project, which had once considered her for a key supporting role, had moved on. Not because of her acting chops, not because she wasn't talented, but because now she came with headlines. And not the good kind. And here's the real kicker. It wasn't just about Rachel anymore. Her situation became a kind of industry-wide anxiety trigger. Young actors who had built their brands on being outspoken, politically engaged, and ultra-online were suddenly getting pulled into emergency media trainings. One entertainment lawyer even joked, half seriously, that silence clauses were about to make a comeback in contracts, not just for leaks, but for opinions. Studios don't like gambling with hundreds of millions on a star who could accidentally alienate half the audience with a single Instagram story. And Rachel, whether she meant to or not, had become Exhibit A of how fast that can happen. Meanwhile, Disney wasn't exactly sending out rescue boats. Insiders say the tone inside the Mouse House had shifted dramatically after the Snow White promo tour went south, and the Simpsons parody was just the nail in the coffin. Rachel's name was allegedly scrubbed from several internal marketing drafts. International press kits began emphasizing Gal Gadot almost exclusively. Visual features centered around the magic of Disney, conveniently glossing over the actress who was supposed to be the new face of the brand. And behind closed doors, executives weren't plotting Rachel's comeback. They were praying the backlash would burn itself out before the next quarterly earnings call, because that's the truth about Hollywood. They don't need to cancel you. They just need to stop picking up your calls. And right now, Rachel Zegler's phone, it's sitting real quiet. So now, here we are. One Simpsons episode, one media firestorm, and one rising star left standing in the ruins of what should have been her fairy tale moment. Rachel Zegler isn't canceled. She isn't boycotted. She's something even more dangerous in Hollywood. She's benched, waiting, watching, frozen at the very edge of relevance, with everyone wondering whether she's going to leap or just fade into the background like so many almost legendary names before her. The tragedy? She still has the tools to turn it around. The talent, the charisma, the voice that once made Spielberg sit up in his director's chair. But none of that matters if the narrative stays frozen in yellow-skinned satire and TikTok punchlines. And right now, that's the version of Rachel Zegler living rent-free in the internet's mind. Not Snow White, not West Side Story, the parody, the meme, the unfinished apology. Hollywood isn't cruel, it's impatient. It doesn't wait for stars to figure it out. It moves on, and the whispers in casting rooms, the silence from studio execs, the the slow but steady erasure from upcoming projects, it all paints the same brutal picture. Rachel isn't fighting for her career against one bad movie. She's fighting against an entire industry's shrinking attention span. And if she wants to win, she can't hide, she can't delete, she can't post vague, cryptic quotes about growth and peace and hope it blows over. She has to walk back into the spotlight, own the backlash, and rebuild the connection she lost. Not with another think piece, not with another polished apology, but with something Hollywood forgot it needed until very recently: authenticity. Because in the end, audiences don't need their princesses to be perfect. They need them to be real, to believe in the magic, to believe in the audience, and to understand that fairy tales survive because someone still wants to believe in happy endings, not because someone lectures them into it. Rachel Zegler's story isn't over. Not yet. But the clock is ticking, and if she waits too long, she won't just be the girl who got parodied by The Simpsons. She'll be the girl who stayed silent until nobody cared to hear her speak. So what do you think? Was Rachel Zegler unfairly dragged? Or was this a Hollywood lesson in how not to lose the audience? Can she reclaim the magic? Or has the storybook already closed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button if you think honesty matters more than PR polish, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the real stories Hollywood wishes you'd ignore. The next video on your screen is waiting, and trust me, you're not ready for what's coming next.